Mark Rogers, TV Talking, is Stanford running backs, minus, of course, Christian McCaffrey, and one substantial running back coming back in Bryce Love from 2016. It doesn't look like a real stable situation to me. Bringing Don King from Last Word on College Football to help us understand why the situation at running back may be better than it appears on the surface, Don.
Happy to talk you through that, Mark. I feel fine about Stanford's running back situation, so let's dive into it.
Yeah, because I'm looking at Bryce Love, who had a nice game against North Carolina in the bowl game to conclude a really solid season in taking some reps from Christian McCaffrey, over 7 yards per carry, 3 touchdowns, ran for almost 800 yards. And then I don't see a whole lot else. I see Cameron Scarlett, who played some garbage time and had 38 carries, and there's not the usual at the level of Stanford depth of 4 or 5 backs that at least A, have playing time in their past, or B, have the track record from high school and the scouting report coming from that level of play that you can feel confident about or excited about seeing them play. I just don't see any of that.
I totally understand. And honestly, going into spring camp, I was worried too. So let's talk about it. You got to keep Bryce Love healthy, and you can't run one guy all day, all the time anyway. You couldn't even do that with McCaffrey, who was about as durable and consistent as a running back, particularly of his stature, could possibly be. But Love got to spell him. Love is one of the fastest players in the Pac-12, if not in the nation. No question he's faster in a straight line than McCaffrey. Perhaps not as much wiggle and not quite as electric. Also short, not the tallest guy in the world or the biggest guy, but my God, he can run. And expect him to do well again next year. It'll be, a little tougher because often he found himself on the field with folks keying on McCaffrey, and then off he goes in another direction. And that 7+ yard per carry average you touted is impressive. But he had the benefit of having, the AP Offensive Player of the Year, often, taking some attention away from defenders. But I do think he's going to be solid, and I think he's going to have a very strong year this year. So then the question is, who's behind him? I think you can expect Cameron Scarlett to be the short yardage back. He's got some experience in that role. He showed better speed and pop this spring than I had seen from him previously. And I am not sure if he slimmed down a little bit in anticipation of what his role might be in the coming season or not. But he looked really quick in the spring game to a greater degree than I had noticed in the past. And that could be my fault. 2 other guys, though, got significant playing time in the spring game. Love was held out on a precautionary basis. Just no need to get your anticipated bell cow nicked up at all in from friendly fire during the spring scrimmage. But 2 guys jumped out and looked far better than I had expected or heard about, honestly. I didn't know anything about these guys other than they had been recruited the year before. So Dorian Maddox comes in. He'll be in his redshirt freshman season this fall. He looked great, had a couple of great goal line carries, showed a lot of power and strength. And had a fantastic spring game. Did get nicked up a little bit and wound up having to come out of that game. Don't know how serious that injury was. Hopefully not bad, but he did not complete it. But he played well while he was in. Additionally, a young man named Trevor Speights absolutely lit it up and, showed speed and burst and, was able to be a little bit elusive in the open field and ripped off 2 or 3 or 4 really impressive runs during the spring game. Looked really, really good. The biggest question mark I've got about these guys, and the thing that it's hard to predict or project, it's fairly safe to say that none of them is going to be as good out of the backfield as McCaffrey, who's been one of the best backs out of the backfield in recent college football memory. So that could be a bit of a challenge, not going to be quite as reliable or, deadly coming out of the backfield. But I think guys taking the handoff, running wide, cutting up the middle, running the power pulling guard formation that Stanford likes so much. I honestly think that's going to be just fine. You know, Maddox and Speights both have a little bit of size to them. Scarlett too. He goes about 220, and those guys can run. So I think the running back position is going to be just fine.
And so with Speights, he was pretty highly regarded coming out of Texas high school football as the 18th rated running back in the nation.
Yep.
By
and we kind of forgot about him.
Sports.
Yeah, we kind of forgot about him because he didn't play last season, and I'll count myself as guilty there. It's like, oh yeah, out of sight, out of mind. But I will tell you, he caught my attention during the spring game, and as I watched that on tape, you understand why he was so highly regarded coming out of school. He's got a year in Shannon Turley's strength and conditioning program now, and that seems to have treated him just fine. I would not be surprised to see he or Maddox or Scarlett do some damage in relief of Bryce Love in the fall and really open some eyes. I think the running back position is going to be fine.
Maddox not necessarily as highly regarded. The number 170 running back coming out of high school, according to 247 Sports, out of Maryland. But, once they hit campus and start playing, these numbers mean nothing. So he's obviously playing himself into a position in which he can get some carries for the Stanford football team. Talking running backs, so you need to listen to Don there and jot down some of these names because it's no longer just Christian McCaffrey, and we know who's going to get the ball at Stanford at the running back position, and we'll move on. Bryce Love and company here in 2017 for the Cardinal. Don, we appreciate the conversation.
Thanks a lot, Mark.
All right.
Question.
Yeah.
Now that I'm 18, do I have a different
kind of. Let me knock out one more of these. Hey, Don, how about one more?
Yeah, let's talk DBs.
Oh, DBs. You're throwing
Yep.
a curve on me here. DBs.
If you want to do just one more, let's talk DBs. I'm excited to talk about these guys.
Okay. All right. I'm going to keep these notes then. I started to prepare for linebackers and offensive line and defensive line. Okay. DBs. So, Justin Reed.
Yep.
Anytime you want to cut loose, I'm not going to have a whole lot to say, but
That's fine. I'm close to ready. I want to talk about this because it's one of those things that's flown under the radar to the extent that Stanford has had the success it has in the last season and a half. On the defense, it was always, the linebackers, the Scoves of the world, and the Chase Thomases, and the Trent Murphys, those guys, and to a degree, Solomon Thomas, right? What people have been missing, Dwayne Akina came over from Texas. Shaw stalked him, stayed outside his house, recruited him, brought him over. They've recruited better since then. They've trained guys well. And Stanford is going to have the best defensive secondary in the Pac-12 this coming season, and it's not going to be close. Nope. And I don't think anybody's talking about that. It's not going to be close. These guys are going to be really, really good.
All right. That's what I like. Strong opinion.
Yep.
I need more of that in this thing. All right.
Yeah, I get that. I understand.
Yeah. That includes me too. I've kind of gotten away from that. It's all this thing used to be before I reached out to you guys was me on here spouting my opinion. I've become just a host now.
Yeah, that's not so bad, right?
All right. You ready to cut loose?
Absolutely. Let's
Okay.
go.
All right. Mark Rogers, TV talking college football, and we're getting you set for positional situations across the country, letting you know who's in play, who's coming back, and who are some of those recruits to look out for here in 2017. We're talking Stanford with Don King from Last Word on College Football. We look at the secondary. So since this emergence of Stanford football, Don, you know the national narrative for the college football, even the knowledgeable college football fan, has been front seven. Running game, front seven. That's Stanford football.
You
But
bet.
you're here to tell us this defensive backfield is pretty darn good despite the loss of Nor Davis and Dallas Lloyd.
Yeah, here's what happened. While people weren't paying that much attention over the last year and a half, Dwayne Akina came over 3 years ago from Texas as they had a head coaching transition there. Shaw set his sights on him, convinced him to come out west, sweet talked him, and Texas used to be known as DBU. You've seen all those guys that laid the leather from Texas and had the right techniques and were ball hawks and interception machines. And quietly, he's brought that same kind of approach and diligence to becoming great tacticians on the back end to Stanford. Kind of when folks weren't looking. I'm going to tell you right now, my number one cornerback in the entire Pac-12 for this coming year is Quentin Meeks, who is a third-year player, played as a true freshman, was a borderline star last year as a sophomore, and this kid is phenomenal. He's got incredible ball skills. You may remember him from the pick six in the Rose Bowl 2 years ago to kind of blow that thing open. It was 14-0, and Iowa was driving, and he jumped a route and took it to the house, and that one was pretty much over. The kid's a star, and what's going to happen this year, people have seen the tape on him. People have gotten afraid of him. People are going to throw away from him. And on the other side, Alameen Murphy is going to make 6, 7, 8 interceptions this year because he's also really, really good at the other starting cornerback position. So the CBs are absolute studs. And then you get to the safeties, right? You've got Justin Reed, who started last season opposite Dallas Lloyd. You can expect him to do that again this year. I think he's going to be an all-conference level performer. And then the other starting safety to replace Lloyd is probably either going to be Denzel Franklin or Ben Edwards. And candidly, depending on the time and the scenario, you could probably pick either one of them and be just fine. There are a couple of other really quality backups. Frank Buncombe is incredibly versatile. He's played some cornerback in the past. He's played some safety. He's played a little bit of nickel. I think you can expect to see him on the field a lot, given all of the aggressive passing offenses around the conference and the quality of the QBs. And Brandon Simmons, who's more or less distinguished himself on special teams, but is another safety who can come into the box and play some special situations. If you need a dime package, you might see him find significant time on the field as well. The secondary is deep. It's experienced. All of these guys have played before. Yes, they're still relatively young. They're all, third-year players or younger, but the talent level is higher than what you may have remembered about the defensive secondary at Stanford. They're coached well by Akina. They're trained well by Shannon Turley. This is the best defensive secondary in the Pac-12, and it isn't close. They're going to be terrific. If the D-line holds up, and I candidly expect that it will, there's lots of depth at the linebacker position. I don't think that's going to be a problem. Any kind of pressure on the QB, just to not make those guys have to run around for 6, 7, 8 seconds on every snap. They're going to turn people over. They're going to make some great plays on the back end, and they're going to win some football games for Stanford in 2017.
Yeah, Justin Reed back after being one of the team leaders in tackles with 55 last year at the safety spot and 4 tackles for loss. Quentin Meeks, 5 picks in the last 2 years. So you're telling us maybe more than that in one season. And Buncombe actually had a pick 6 against Washington State despite getting manhandled in that game. He had a big play in returning 126 yards for a touchdown in that one. So, Don, I got to tell you, when somebody makes the statement to me, Pac-12 defensive backfield, the best is I'm checking USC first. That's usually my first stop. UCLA has had some tremendous recruiting classes in, in the secondary the last few years. Fabian Moreau, Ishmael Adams, those guys. Yeah, Washington State just moved 3 on to the NFL in the second round of the draft. So they're replacing those guys. But Peterson has had very good hauls in the recruiting. But this is the best secondary in the Pac-12.
Yeah. Mark my words.
We will be watching closely because I think the league has the best quarterback play and will in 2017 with Darnold back, Rosen back, Falk back. No other league can match the quarterback play that we're going to see out of the Pac-12.
Jake Browning too. Yep. Yeah, they're real good. So we're going to have to be good. Fortunately, I think we will be.
All right. Don King from Last Word on College Football. Please join him there. And Don and I I enjoy the conversation each and every time, sir.
Thank you, Mark. Appreciate it.